People really do care a lot about water, and if you're not getting what you want from people, it's not because they don't care. There must be some other reason. Here is a study from the Gallup poll that was conducted last year, and they ran a list of 25 environmental problems. And out of the 25 items, 4 of them had water in the description, and those 4 clustered at the top. League of Conservation Voters asked a bunch of Georgians, what's important to you? Water. State after state after state, year after year after year, you will see that Americans say the environment is one of their top handful of priorities, and the water is their top priority among the environment. And we are not tapping into that strong commitment to water, to clean water, that deep concern about water, because we leave people scratching their heads the same way these examples leave you scratching your head. And so you might say, we all know what a watershed is. We all know what biodiversity is. Where are all those people who don't know what that is? There are very clear patterns in our society about who does and who doesn't understand our professional vocabulary, and the most important one to understand is education. Or really quite striking that 75%, 3 out of 4 MBAs and PhDs can guess the correct definition. That means 1 out of 4 can't. PhDs, 1 out of 4 PhDs cannot guess the correct definition of watershed. But now here's the thing that tends to surprise the kinds of people in this room. 3 out of 4 U.S. adults do not have a college education. And for those of you who are active in rural watersheds, the ratio is even lower than that. So when we use professional vocabulary out in public, we are disproportionately excluding those in our society who have not had the same access to higher education that we have. When we use a lot of professional language in our public conversation, we are also excluding women. We use language that excludes minorities, makes them feel unwelcome and unconfident. Who likes to be surrounded in a room where you can barely follow what people are talking about? People avoid that situation. And it's the same pattern for any professional vocabulary you can think of. It's the same pattern for biodiversity. It's the same pattern for non-point source pollution. It's the same pattern for impervious surface. It's the same pattern for hydrograph, and on and on and on. The actual numbers will fluctuate, of course, but the basic story of professional language excluding those without college educations, excluding minorities, and disproportionately excluding women holds true. Makes people feel unconfident, and that lack of confidence inhibits their action. And here's what that kind of adds up to. Study after study after study will find that if you go out to those everyday citizens who mostly don't have college educations, who are increasingly racially diverse, half of whom are women, and you say, who do you trust when it comes to information about clean water, nature protection, and pollution control? They will say university scientists, government scientists, and environmentalists. And then if you say, well, where do you get your information about nature protection, clean water, and pollution control? Well, they'll say television, newspapers, and the radio. Because journalists get up every morning and go to work saying, how do we take this complicated story and make it accessible and clear to the people who are out there? They work harder to make themselves understood than we do. They understand that making yourself understood about complicated subjects is a legitimate thing to focus some time and effort on. So we have effectively ceded control of the debate to reporters. And the other thing is that the news media just doesn't move public opinion the way it used to. Here's the problem with relying on reporters. The news media is falling apart. We are leaving the era of the mass media, and we are entering the era of non-point source information. These are the trends of our time. For many, many decades, we believed that if we got enough news coverage, and we got the right kind of news coverage, then all those people out there would come to us. We believe that if we got enough news coverage and the right kind of news coverage, politicians would say, oh, that's where the public sentiment is. We better legislate and appropriate accordingly. Less and less and less every day. So that creates a need to change our paradigm. We have to fundamentally rethink our communications. For decades, environmentalists placed a lot of faith in the media. We believe we would start with some good science, and then that science would translate into news. We believe that news would translate into buzz, and that buzz and some good benefit for the environment would come out of that buzz. Awareness. We used to talk about awareness. We still talk about awareness. We talk about education. But the link in that chain that is breaking down is the news media. It's not your fault, and there's nothing you can do about it. And for most of the rest of the day, we're going to focus on the new paradigm, where we start with good science like we always did, but the responsibility for translating that science comes to us. So we'll plan a campaign, a marketing campaign, a fundraising campaign, a behavior change campaign, an issue advocacy campaign, and we'll drive some group of people to act in some way. Give us money, put a rain barrel on their house, recycle their oil, write their councilman, buy the environmentally preferable product. One of those.